Well, here goes another real mob LCN on location. Today we're going to talk about the Gemini Lounge, a spot in Flatlands, Brooklyn, which was famous for Roy Demeo and his crew where they hung out. Everybody knows the story about the Gemini twins, Joey Testa, Anthony Senta. So basically I'm just gonna walk by and show the outside of the place and mention a little bit about what went on. Actually, I'm on East 41st Street and Avenue L right now. You could see the old building where the Gemini Lounge was up ahead on the right. And it's a bunch of row houses over here. 2-story, probably 1 and 2 families. The area is still pretty middle class. Actually, as a kid, we lived maybe, I would say, a mile away on East 53rd Street and Kings Highway, which is really part of East Flatbush or Flatlands neighborhood. It's funny because this neighborhood kind of borders Flatbush, Flatlands. A little further southeast is N.Y.C. And you have East Flatbush a little further, I want to say a little further north. But either way, this is near Flatbush Avenue. The famous pizzeria Original on Ralph Avenue, which is around Georgetown. There used to be a diner in the area, Arch Diner. You got Avenue M, and actually this is like a multiple corner intersection of Troy Avenue, Flatlands Avenue, East 41st Street. So it's a really odd looking schematic over here on the layout. So right now we're looking at a church, which is now a church. It used to be the Gemini Lounge. I'm gonna walk by, crossing the street towards it. And I'm gonna be honest with you, most of my videos are pretty simple. You know, no big deal to film, but knowing the area and coming around here, it's kind of eerie. You get like an eerie feeling, I guess, because you know what happened over here with his crew and everything. But either way, you get an eerie feeling. But this is the apartment right here. This is the supposed apartment where the Gemini method was applied to its victims, where Joseph Dracula Guglielmo lived. It's 2084. 2084, looking at it right now. So you got the apartment in the back where everything took place. And over here you had a long hallway that used to lead up to the front where the bar was, where the Gemini Lounge was. So this is basically where it is. Gonna walk around the front. It's now a church, like I said, 4021. It's a church now. And I'm just gonna walk around and show you. A lot of the neighbors around here don't like people walking around. And this is it. And this is the left side of the building back here. So that's it. The original Gemini Lounge is now a church. And I heard that the people that own it now never knew that it was a spot where many people were killed and stuff. So we got a little shot of someone going into the office, which was actually the apartment, the House of Horrors, where Joseph Guglielmo lived, aka Dracula. I saw a video interview of a lady that moved into the apartment just after all the police investigations and whatnot were done and everybody was out of there. They rented the apartment, and her name was Debbie Doyle, and she did say that it was kind of eerie the first night that she moved in, learning that, you know, there were people, probably upwards of 100 people, killed and hung in that bathroom where she took a shower. And she said it was eerie because she was thinking of all that blood that, you know, went down the drain and in the pipes. But said after a day or so, she was fine with it. I mean, I don't know how true that is, but that was what was said in her interview. I mean, like, the place is definitely eerie. If you ever come by, you'll sense it. Could be because you know what happened here, but it's just crazy. It is an eerie looking place. A little bit more about the, you know, Roy Demeo and the Gemini Lounge and the crew. The Magnificent Seven, which they were called by Roy, were Chris Rosenberg, Joey Testa, Anthony Senta, Henry Borelli, the Gnome brothers. There was about 7 main guys, but out of the whole crew, there was between 12 and 15. If you want to include Nino Gaggi, who was the capo of the crew, you know, who oversaw Roy, and Dominic Montiglio, who was basically a go-between. I don't think Dominic Montiglio was ever made. I think Nino Gaggi used him. He was his nephew, but he used him. And was never made. There was a lot of contention between Dominic Montiglio and Chris Rosenberg, which, you know, caused a lot of issues for Dominic. And in an interview, I heard him say that he always went there to pick up money 2 times a week, 3 times a week, and he would always think in the back of his head, I may never walk out of here. So that's pretty, you know, scary, pretty crazy. But over the years, they killed approximately, some numbers are 100 people, some numbers are upwards of 200. But from what I could gather, I believe Roy Demeo himself killed about 60 or more. Some say 100, but they can only verify about 60 or so. And then you figure there were probably a few bodies on each other guy. The Gemini twins probably killed another 50 to 100. Who knows? In another interview I saw, I believe it was Sammy the Bull, had asked Roy, what's going on? You guys are killing like, you know, crazy. And Roy said something like, killing like crazy. He goes, my coffee boy's on number 5. So that's how serious these guys were. They were no joke. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, when I was a kid, I lived briefly not too far from here. At that time, my father was a heavy drinker. And he would drive cabs in the city. And I remember one night he came home and my stepmother was talking to him, and I came downstairs and he was all shook up. He was like pale. I mean, he was probably drunk. But we were asking him what happened. He didn't want to talk about it. So eventually, you know, one day I asked him what happened. I was probably about 9, 10 years old. And he told me that he doesn't want to talk about it. So I kept probing him, you know. And he told me that he went to that bar up there on that corner. I didn't remember the name at the time, but I know now. And he said, I'd rather not talk about it. I don't know if he saw anything or if maybe, you know, they didn't like him and they gave him a problem. Who knows what happened, but that's a true story. And I believe it. And maybe I could have my father come on here one day and talk about it. But yeah, that's the old building of the Gemini Lounge in Brooklyn. Flatlands Avenue, Troy, and East 41st Street. Another real mob LCN on location.